We have this image in the gospel of coming through the narrow gate as a means by which we can be saved. What does that mean? Does it mean that we're supposed to go on a diet? I was at the airport a couple of weeks ago, and a lady came up to me and says, "Oh, I see you on television." She said, you're much taller on television. And I said, "Well, I'm glad you're not saying that I'm much thinner. We all maybe like to shed a few pounds." But that really isn't the sense either. It's whether or not we can go through the narrow gate burdened by all sorts of excess baggage in our life. And that baggage we hear in the gospel can easily be a matter of living according to the expectations of others, in which we lose our very self. Expectations of others that we have all sorts of accumulated goods in our life, financial success, maybe esteem, when in fact the real core of our identity is that the Lord has brought us into the world to show us His love, to share His life and His love with us. So that core of who we are in our identity must be preserved, because when we don't and we just mouth the words of our faith, or we think that we're doing okay because we're financially successful, the Lord will say, do not know who you are, where you come from, because we have lost our own identity. And so our prayer life, time and again, has to begin by recognizing in simplicity that all is gift in life, that God has blessed us in so many ways, and that He has done so to show us how much we are loved by Him, love for all eternity. That is the core of who we are. That's the essence of our identity. But we also have this image of coming into the house. And a house is a place, a home is a place where we have to make space for one another. We have to share space with others. And that, I think, also is important, to realize that in this world we live with others, and we have to be aware of the fact that others, especially who so often there is no room at the table, really are our responsibility to making sure that they're cared for, that there is place at the table for them in life. I think that's so important as we look at dealing with the homeless in our streets, or the people who are easily discarded because they don't seem to fit in society. How is it that we are coming through the narrow gate by making room in our lives for others who are in need? That is the narrow gate as well. Because so often we can have the excess baggage of thinking as though as long as we take care of ourselves or just our family, that's good enough. No, the narrow gate also is that understanding in a very simple way that we are responsible for one another. And finally, we have this image of the kingdom of God as a matter of a great banquet in life, at the end of life, a banquet in which food is shared. Well, growing up in a big family, I remember one of the phrases my parents always told us was, "Wait your turn," as the food was passed around, rather than everybody digging in at once and then leaving others without some. Wait your turn, sharing food so that we take responsibility for the nourishment of one another, that we not just nourish ourselves. That too is a narrow gate, because so often our selfishness can bloat us in our understanding of who we are, can bloat us in our self-image, thinking as though as long as we take care of ourselves, that's good enough. So today, as we hear this very challenging gospel, the Lord asks us once again to be those who are His disciples, who come through the narrow gate, to leave aside the excess baggage of a puffed up ego that maybe sometimes reduces us to the goods that we have or the success that we have in life, but really to see that our identity is those who are loved by God. But also the narrow gate of making sure that others in our world share our space, that we make room for them. And finally, that we take up the task of making sure that at the banquet of life, everyone has a share, that we wait our turn, that we make sure that others are also nourished just as we are. That, I think, has a lot to offer us in our own spiritual growth. The narrow gate is a wonderful image to hold before us as we celebrate the Eucharist today.